Hi, I'm Melisa Idris, and you're watching The Future is Female. This is the show where we find the extraordinary in every woman. I'm so delighted to introduce my guest tonight. Her name is Raudhah Nazran. She's the CEO and founder of Accelerate Global, which is a social youth enterprise tackling youth unemployment, particularly amongst the underprivileged and the marginalized. Raudhah also sits on various advisory boards, everything from charities to the Curriculum Development Board of Malaysia's Polytechnic and College Community. Raudhah, welcome to the show. It's so good to have you. Thank you so much for being on The Future's Female.
Thank you so much, Melisa. Absolutely thrilled to be here today.
And before we start anything, I want to say congratulations on being recognized as one of Tatler Asia's Leaders of Tomorrow honoree for 2020. What an amazing achievement. Congratulations for that.
Thank you so very much. I'm humbled, definitely.
And that's precisely, it's so good to have you on the show because I wanted to talk to you about all the things that I know people have recognized in you. Your journey is quite remarkable, and I wanted to ask you about that, social enterprise journey. I understand that it started back when you were in university in the UK. So tell us a little bit about it. Why was this a path that you chose? Why are you passionate about this line of work?
Marvelous. Thank you so much, Melissa. Yes, it is a question that I really love to answer. It dated back when I was in university about 4 years ago. Goodness gracious, 4 years ago, right? I started university. So I read law in the UK. Clearly did not practice. So what happened was, just a bit of a background story. I remember in my first year, I walked in the Freshers' Fair in university. So Freshers' Fair is quite similar to Orientation Week in our local university. And so what happens in this Freshers' Fair is there are a lot of societies, lots of organizations, and you can sign up for these things. And I remember I went there for about an hour, sort of circling around. I signed up for dance classes, cheerleading society, sort of trying to find a home because we're far from home. And I was on my way back, Melissa, and then out of the blue, this young man sort of just jumped on me. Do you want to change the world? And I was like, of course I want to change the world. What do you say to that question? But I said, yes, of course, tell me more about it. And so he asked me for my email, to which I gave. And he wrote it in iPhone notes in between his grocery list. To which I thought, this boy is never going to find my email, never going to be able to change the world now, but that's all right. But turns out he did email me. So I guess while he was in Tesco, he found out there's this girl that I needed to email. And so he emailed me. And I remember going to the first meeting for the Social Enterprise Society in my university. And so I fell in love with it. And that's actually how my social entrepreneurship journey started. I think what really captivated me to the social entrepreneurship ecosystem and arena is the sustainability element, I must say, Melissa. Okay. And so what we mean by sustainability, just to give perhaps a bit of context. So before I flew to the UK, I had a charity organization, a foundation. I started when I was 18, and it was more towards helping the homeless, the orphanage, as well as the elderly. So essentially giving food sort of supplies, right? Monthly food relief, monthly food aid. But then I've always had a thought in my mind, what happens next, right? And so we give them the food, we give them sort of, the company they need sometimes, having all these gatherings, but what happens next? Would they be able to get out of homelessness? Would they be able to get out of poverty? And so that question has always been lingering in my mind. What is next for them? So when I attended that meeting, I remember in my first year, I was about 19, turning 20, not a teenager anymore now, obviously. But yes, so I attended, and I remember I thought this is the perfect solution to the question that I've always had all these years. Sustainability, essentially tackling poverty, tackling homelessness, tackling unemployment sustainably to ensure that these beneficiaries are able to stand on their own 2 feet. Because I've always had a thought, if I'm not around anymore, right, Melissa, what's going to happen to them? Would they be able to build their lives? Would they be able to continue living the best life I believe they deserve to live.
Right.
So that's how I started my journey, and that's how I, fell in love with it. And still in love with it, honestly.
And it's quite a journey. It's been quite a journey, even in the 4 years since. And I wanted to ask you about that because you were named the first female Asian president of a social enterprise. You awarded Team Leader of the Year in the UK, International Student of the Year in Essex. You were called to the Parliament of the UK. What was that like? Because I understand you spoke at the UK Parliament, you spoke at the United Nations Human Rights Conference, all about issues surrounding youth unemployment. Talk to us. What was that experience like, and how did you end up speaking at the UK Parliament?
It was a dream come true. I think I should start with that, isn't it? Definitely a dream come true. But then when we talk about the Parliament, I've never thought of actually going to the Parliament. Maybe just, to share with you a little bit, I've never been to Malaysian Parliament, so that's quite a big surprise there because I've been to the UK Parliament. I think I can start with my appointment first to lead the social enterprise, because I think the story starts from there. I must thank my predecessor for that, actually. So all the years that the social enterprise is built in my university, the leaders are either obviously British, English, students or English people, or either essentially African, but never an Asian and then a Muslim person. And I remember, Melisa, I came in to the executive team. I was the only Muslim Asian. And I remember the first meeting I went, I was actually appointed as the project leader for a project based in Ghana, helping former sex trafficking women. That was how I sort of started my journey or my career with the social enterprise. I came to my first meeting, nobody wanted to talk to me. I was like, what on earth is going on? Nobody wanted to talk to me, but I'm like, all right, that's completely fine. I'm just going to do my job. But the one person that actually spoke to me was the president herself. Essentially, she was the one who brought me in. She saw my talent. She saw essentially, what I could bring to the table. And she was actually the one who nominated me to the board to become the president. I remember her. So she is actually from Mali, Africa. And so she's now my friend as well, my best friend. And I've got to thank her for that. But the journey was rather peculiar because nobody wanted to talk to me. And then I sort of just leveled up and became the president. And I remember when I was the president as well, just to share with you, Melisa, I did experience racial discrimination. And so it was quite the challenge because I was just here. I love social enterprise. I love the projects that we were involved in, helping people. I just wanted to focus on that. But I've got to handle all of these other sort of, problems on the side as well. I remember getting harassed on the squares, and I remember, people mentioning that you don't deserve to be a president. You're just an Asian Muslim woman, go back to your country and things like that. But what I did was actually I garnered the trust of the team by showing them that at the end of the day, social enterprise is all about the people. It's all about, the value of sincerity and integrity. It wasn't easy, but I encapsulated both values of sincerity and integrity into the organization. And so praise be to God, it worked, although it was a little bit rocky in the first start. And at the end of the day, we were named top 3 social enterprises in the UK. Perfect. Thank you. And that was actually what brought me to the Parliament. So yes, we were top 3 social enterprises in the UK. I was named Team Leader of the Year in the United Kingdom at the time. And that was when Lord Michael Hastings saw us and sort of invited me and the team to the Parliament. So I brought a couple of my team members in as well, again, to showcase that it's all about teamwork. It's not just me. It's also a teamwork. And the reason why we got to top 3 isn't just because of me, it's also because of the team. And so I was there, spoke about youth unemployment, to a bunch of people that I don't know.
So youth unemployment specific to the UK? So you're talking about the problem within the UK, okay.
Yes, precisely. So at the time, just to share with you a bit of context, Melisa, so we had a project called Big Difference. And so Big Difference is essentially a social enterprise to help youth who are not in employment, educational training, in order to make them more employable. And so that topic was such a hot pancake, I must say, at the time, because there was a rising number of youths who are not in employment, education, or training. And so I spoke about that, spoke about the project, spoke about how we managed to combat the issue. Again, to a bunch of strangers, but it worked perfectly well. Got a picture with Lord Michael Hastings, though not in the parliament, because we were not allowed to bring our phones in the parliament. Yes, it was tremendously an amazing journey. I think I was 22 or 23, if I'm not mistaken, when I went to the parliament. So it was like a dream, but it was a reality.
I mean, it's amazing that you were speaking at Parliament, UK Parliament at 23. So correct me if I'm mistaken. So the social enterprise in the UK was focusing on youth unemployment, and then when you came back, so then there was a process of coming back to Malaysia, setting up your your social enterprise here, which also focuses on youth unemployment. Is that an issue that you felt, because you talked a little bit earlier about addressing the root causes of poverty, making sure that there's a sustainable living to be made. Is that an issue that you decided very early on? Okay, this is what this is speaking to me. This is my calling. I'm going to be championing youth unemployment from now on.
Yes, actually, I must agree with you on that. Just because I believe that youths are, again, I don't think anyone can deny this, they are the next generation of leaders of not just the country but also the world, isn't it? And so if the youths are essentially unemployed, then we've got a bigger issue at hand. There's the threat of poverty, threats of homelessness, and so on and so forth. So I decided to focus on the issue of youth unemployment because, number one, I believe they are the next generation of leaders. And second of all, if we don't tackle unemployment on the youth level, then we've got a bigger issue to handle in the next 10, 20 years, rising number of poverty and rising number of homelessness. And another reason as to why I focus on youth unemployment as well is because the threats that unemployment brings in, as I mentioned before, when someone is unemployed, and I've seen this firsthand with our beneficiaries, when someone is unemployed, they cannot pay for bills. First of all, they cannot buy monthly supply, or don't even talk about monthly supply. At times, they cannot even buy food or put food on the table, today or tomorrow. And so all these things have got ripple effects, not just to the social cycle, but also to the economy of the country. And so I chose to tackle the issue of unemployment because I believe when we do tackle this issue, it simultaneously tackles all the other issues that might come in the later future. And so, yes, I said this is definitely an issue, worth tackling. And this is definitely an issue where when we tackle it, it's going to open lots more doors and it's going to tackle much more issues or larger issues, bigger than unemployment itself.
Okay, so we're going to take a quick break, Raudhah, but after this I want to talk a little bit about Accelerate Global, your social enterprise, and what it's doing to address those issues, the root causes of poverty, including youth unemployment. Okay, so we'll be right back on The Future's Female. Don't go anywhere, stay tuned. Hi, welcome back to The Future's Female. I'm speaking to Raudhah Nazran, CEO and founder of Accelerate Global, which is a social enterprise tackling youth unemployment issues among the underprivileged and marginalized. So we were just talking about how you came back to Malaysia and you really, this is a calling for you. This is one of the reasons why you stayed in social enterprise. Tell us a little bit about, founding Accelerate Global and why, what it intends to address. So looking at the specific context of youth unemployment in Malaysia, how do we understand that reality in 2021, in today, in a pandemic world?
Marvelous, Melissa. Yes, so just maybe a bit of background about Accelerate Global. As you already introduced us, so we're a social enterprise, we tackle youth unemployment, but the solution that we provide is relatively simple, and it's actually a back to basics solution, and that is providing a quality upskilling program for the underprivileged and for the marginalized, developing them into becoming entrepreneurs of their own, so they can actually stand on their own 2 feet and not actually depend depend on, let's say, employment, or essentially depend on relatively immediate release. And so what we do at Accelerate is we teach. And so sometimes when people ask me what I do, I go on to the safe route of saying I'm a teacher. Sort of just easy way out. I'm a teacher, I teach. So what we do is we upskill these youths, giving them the necessary skills they need, not just entrepreneurial knowledge, not just how to start a business, but also essentially providing them with the necessary skills they need to sustain in the entrepreneurship industry itself. As we all know, entrepreneurship comes with a lot of challenges, a lot of adversities, especially now in the pandemic, where a lot of businesses, are literally struggling to sort of survive the pandemic. And so what we do at Accelerate, we provide all these skills and actually enhance them and actually develop these youths into becoming self-sufficient entrepreneurs. So that's what we call them essentially.
Can you explain a little bit what kind of skills? So, if you're thinking about entrepreneurship skills, it's not just, you're not just thinking about taking to market, it's all the other skills that come with an entrepreneurial mindset and attitude. Can you talk a little bit about some of those skills and what that takes to upskill some young person who might be interested in becoming an entrepreneur?
Of course, Melissa. I think that's a really important question as well. I'm going to answer that question by giving an example of our program, one of our programs. So we've got Accelerate Reach Entrepreneurship Program, which is a 3.5-month long program. And it's broken down into 3 phases. So the first phase is we develop the youths and instill confidence, resilient minds, tenacity, teaching them about perseverance, teaching them all of these little concepts about what's in the bag, sort of compartmentalizing their mind. Let's say when they run a business later and they've got multiple issues, how do they handle that? So that's all in phase 1. That is the building the entrepreneurial mindset. That's all phase 1. And then once they graduate from that phase, we move on to the second phase. And the second phase, we essentially expose them with the social, economical, and environmental issues that exist in the world. And I think that's where we sort of come in and sort of guide them about social entrepreneurship as well, guiding them and then essentially informing them that, hey, social enterprise is also a social business. It's also a business that you can sort of venture into. And so that's the second phase. And I think the significance of the second phase is actually to build the next generation of responsible leaders. I really love to say this in any panel I go to. We are not here to create the next generation of leaders. We are here to create the next generation of responsible leaders. And so it's important when we upskill them, what are the elements that we need to take into account to ensure that we can develop the next generation of responsible leaders. And that's where Accelerate's phase 2 comes in. And then once they graduate from there, they then move on to the third phase where they start their own business. And in the third phase is where they sort of simulate and sort of apply everything they learn in the first 2 phases. So in phase 3, it's more hands-on. We teach them how to come up with a business idea, how to build a business solution, up to the point how exactly can they test and validate their business. So all of our graduates, Melissa, just to share with you, they graduate our program with a validated business ideas. Some actually generated income even before they graduate.
Wow. That's really great. Can you tell us a little bit about, so who are the graduates? Who are the people, the young Malaysians who participate in the program? I'm just wondering because, we have an idea of youth unemployment today. And you think of youth who perhaps didn't go to university or can't get a job. But the reality is very different. Today, with graduate unemployment, with underemployment, can you tell us what you understand from the situation on the ground and the people that you're working with through your programs?
Of course, Melissa, happy to. So throughout the years that I've worked on tackling the issue of unemployment, I realized that unemployment is not the problem. It is essentially, so it's not a problem. What I mean is that it's a symptom to a much larger issue. And so the problem is not unemployment, the problem is something else. But the result of that is unemployment. And so after a couple of years of research to understand the landscape of employability or landscape of the issue of unemployment in this country and abroad, I realized it comes down to three factors as to why unemployment essentially exists or still exists in our country and abroad. Number one is the fact that the youths nowadays, they are not fully equipped with the necessary hands-on skills to stand on their own 2 feet. I know this might sound controversial, but I believe it's something that we must discuss. So what was taught to them in school or in colleges or universities are more theories. And I'm sure a lot more people agree with me on this. And they're not taught on how to essentially tackle a problem hands-on. And so what I mean is that we're facing the pandemic. The economy is not doing good. We cannot deny that. Businesses are also not doing good. Hence, essentially, unemployment rate is really high. Youthers are essentially clueless, right? They don't know, what do I do now? I cannot get a job. If I want to start a business, it requires big capital, but actually it does not require big capital to start a business. But only if only they know that, they would have been able to combat it themselves. But what is lacking essentially is that skills that was meant to be taught to them, I believe, in school. I mean, I don't have children yet, but I would want my children to be, to learn that in school.
You mean like entrepreneurial skills to be taught in school? I have to say that that's really quite interesting because, I'm wondering how many young people, and I'm speaking in generalities, I'm being quite general when I say this, but I'm wondering how many young people actually consider entrepreneurship as a career path, whether they think setting up a business as their first career option upon graduation, as opposed to getting a salaried job. So maybe you're onto something with entrepreneurship skills in being taught in schools. Then, perhaps it's embedded that entrepreneurship is a career, is an option after graduation.
It is indeed, Melissa. I mean, there are a lot of youths out there who they have entrepreneurial spirit, actually. They have entrepreneurial knowledge and they wish to essentially become an entrepreneur. But normally what stops them, after having spoken to a lot of youths out there, the fear is failure, of course, right, number one. And essentially number two is they think that starting a business requires large capital. No.
And you said it doesn't.
It doesn't. Let me just share with you, Melissa. I think this will be interesting for the audience as well. I started Accelerate with zero capital, actually. So I obviously came back, rejected all the job offers, and everyone was calling me crazy at the time. Did not ask my mother for any capital. And what I did was, I know what I want to do. I want to upskill youths. First thing I did was I talked to someone in sort of like a showroom for a condo. And I said, you guys don't do showrooms on Saturday. Can I use the space? Since you're not using it. So, give me the space. They gave it for free. And then I got someone to sponsor the food. And I ran my first workshop last year in July, charged a small fee of 30 ringgit, and I got 20 participants in. And so that was 600 pure profit at the time. And so, the only capital was my effort and my time, which comes in, well, when you're an entrepreneur, those two comes in. Cannot deny that. But I didn't put any money in. My first profit was 600 ringgit for running a workshop in June 2019. And then I ran more and more, sort of gained traction. And that's when organizations started to know about Accelerate and were given projects to run larger workshops, larger upskilling programs. And here we are today. So I think it's important, Melissa, that when you want to start a business, talk about scaling up, that's completely a different topic. But taking off, it doesn't require 10,000 ringgit, 5,000 ringgit. It doesn't. And there are always ways to do that. And so I'm going to entice the audience a little bit. You can join Accelerate's programs to know more about this, because I teach this as well in our classes.
Okay, on that note, Raudhah, we have to wrap things up because we've come to the end of the program. We could continue talking about this for another hour easily, I'm sure. But again, if you are interested to find out more, you can always go to Raudhah. What is the website?
So you could go to www.accelerateglobal.co, or you can also follow our Instagram, Accelerate Global.
There you go. Thank you so much for being on the show today. It's been such a pleasure talking to you. Thanks, Raudhah.
Melisa, I enjoyed it very much. Thank you so much. A privilege to be interviewed by you.
I'm Melisa Idris, and I will be back with another episode of The Future is Female, same time next week. Thank you so much for watching. Good night.